Hey everybody, we are going live right now. I have to do this one today because I am going out of town tomorrow. I'm actually going to Universal Orlando, so y'all should definitely follow along some of the posts to our public pages this week. I'm sure mostly probably in stories. I'll try to do my best to document all the things that I eat and some choices that I make while I'm at the theme park. We are going because Brian is, well, if you didn't know, we're obsessed with Halloween and he loves Halloween Horror Nights. So we're going to be there through Sunday. So that's why we're doing this a day early. But this week is a big week because it's all about carbohydrates. And we devoted an entire week to carbs because it's probably one of the most demonized foods out there. You know, a lot of people have gotten on this kick of low carb strategies. You name it. It's been over the last, decade or so, like how people lose weight. Well, in a sense, yes, when you cut out a food group, so when you cut out a macronutrient for any period of time, you are essentially controlling the amount of food or the amount of calories that you're bringing in a way. And yeah, if you do that for any length of time, things are going to change. But what happens whenever you add those foods back in? Are you creating something or a habit that makes you fearful of food? And so we don't want to do that. And really, you want to learn how to eat carbohydrates and not demonize them because they are essential to thriving in this life and they are essential to recovery. So, how we have the sleep habit. In a few weeks, we're going to be talking about exercise and how to, building muscle. So eating carbohydrates within your diet on a regular basis will not only help you recover better, but it will also help you with your energy, with your mood, building muscle, so recovering from workouts, help you sleep better. But you need to understand that not all carbohydrates are created equal. And so in a sense, you're still going to be sticking with your habits, but you're going to be learning that trying to count macronutrients, like when you're a person that is trying to stay under a certain a number of carbohydrates for the day, where those carbohydrates matter because how those carbohydrates are used in your body and absorbed in your body will differ depending on the quality of them. And so that's what this entire week is about. I love carbs. I'm cranky whenever I don't have carbohydrates. If I unintentionally go low carb, maybe I didn't have all my options available that I wanted for the day. I can definitely tell in the days after if I'm not getting enough for what I'm doing as far as workouts, mental energy expended, and even sleep quality. So we started the day or the week off with the recipe revamp assignment. That's a good one because that is kind of taking it to still in our meal prep type of skills that we're building on, is trying to dissect a recipe and make it better. So if you'll notice that in all of our recipes, especially in the CK cookbook, a lot of them are revamps of dishes and flavors that we love that may have not been as healthy or habit filling in a previous version. So take a look at that lesson and how we go about kind of dissecting and subbing out ingredients, because you can get a really tasty meal that is in line with your habits and you not miss other things. So one of the biggest issues with people trying to learn how to eat better quality foods is that they end up eating foods they don't like. So you absolutely must learn how to cook things or prepare things or choose things that are within your habit realm, but also that you enjoy to eat. Because no matter what, like we've said a million times before, willpower will not always last. Motivation doesn't always last. What keeps you going is habits and learning how to like the things that you're actually doing. Because if you feel like you're suffering through it, I guarantee you it will not last. And so that'll kind of bring us into the love of carbs in this whole week, because a lot of people, they demonize carbohydrates, and yes, of course, if you don't eat carbohydrates, you end up losing weight fast. Why? Because you're actually losing a lot of water weight. Carbohydrates, carbs hold, like their little grams, their molecules like to hold on to water. And so whenever you don't eat carbohydrates, your body's not holding on to water. So that's one of the reasons why it works so fast, especially in the beginning. If you cut out carbohydrates, you're losing a lot of water weight. And then, like what I mentioned early on, if you cut out a food group for any length of time, yeah, you're going to lose weight. But what happens after you add those foods back in? You'll most likely put on water weight that you think is body fat, but it's mostly not. Your body's just holding onto water a little bit more, and then you get discouraged and whatnot. So what we really want to do is learn how to eat smart carbs. Smart carbs, you got that lesson Monday. What is a smart carb? Identifying it, but really, good rule of thumb is 1 ingredient carbs from your plants. All plants are carbohydrates. Of course, there are more starchy carbohydrates, more dense carbohydrates in plants, and those are the ones that don't hold a lot of water. So like where fruit or like leafy greens and stuff have a lot of water in them, they're not as carbohydrate dense or calorie dense as, say, like a potato. And so for all intents and purposes, we're going to talk about starchy carbs this week when we mention carbs. But just so you know, all plants are carbohydrates. So what is a smart carb? Those are 1 ingredient carbohydrates. And in that lesson, you got a list of the different types of starchy carbohydrates. Personally, I work better whenever I have a consistent habit of potatoes and rice within my diet on a daily basis. You can carb cycle, which we do kind of touch on that a little bit, but when it comes to carb timing, carb cycling, that's not the end all be all when it comes to longevity, lasting results, especially if you're level 1. So if you're a level 1 eater, when we start talking about post-workout carbs and all that stuff, like earn your carbs, that's not necessarily anything you need to concern yourself with. Now, if you're level 2 and you've got some specific goals, then some carb cycling can be, can kind of push you up to that next level of getting a little bit leaner. But in the grand scheme of things, it's not really that big of a deal. You would be much better off learning how to eat a moderate amount of starchy carbs every day so you don't get crazy in your head. And we're all about not being psycho. So that's why we're really into everybody learning how to eat these smart carbs and not be scared of them. So take a look at that Monday lesson, and it goes over what is a smart carb, but it's mainly 1 ingredient whole food starchy carbs. So rice, grains, potatoes, starchier fruits like bananas, stuff like that. Less water means more starch. The next day, so today you got a really, really, really great lesson. Real food versus fake food. And that's where we're talking about the quality of your carbs and how it matters, because real food is going to digest a lot differently in your body than, say, a processed food carb would. Real food has fiber, has vitamins, has things that are going to slow down digestion and make your body work harder to actually process it, whereas a processed food is already processed for you before it comes into your body. So whole food is not processed. Your body does the processing, burns calories while you're processing it and digesting it. So therefore you're not absorbing as much of the energy from that food, whereas a fake food or junk food, processed food, it's already been broken down by the preparation of it. And your body, once it hits your system, you're going to digest it quickly, and your body's not going to have time to figure out what to do with it. So what is it going to do? It's going to store it as fat. So that's why the different, so for example, if you ate 25, 30 grams of a sweet potato, carbohydrates of a sweet potato, versus 30 grams from some kind of breakfast muffin or whatever, donut or something like that, those two things are going to digest differently. Donut, super fast, it's going to hit your system, spike your insulin, and store as fat because your body needs to get rid of it or get that sugar out of your system quickly, so it can't process it fast enough, whereas a sweet potato or a regular potato is going to have fiber in it. It's going to be slowed down by that fiber, and your body has to process it itself. Martha asked, white or brown rice? Favorite is basmati. Yes, I love that rice too. That's actually what I eat. Now, as far as rice goes, the difference is brown rice still has the bran from the grain in it, and that can upset some people's stomachs if they're sensitive to that stuff. But as far as, and yes, it will have more vitamins. The brown rice will. So nutritious wise, brown rice technically is better, but as far as carbohydrates and how it's processed in your body, they're pretty much the same. I particularly like basmati rice, and that's what I use in mine whenever I'm eating rice. So as long as you're sticking to your portion sizes and it's a one ingredient carbohydrate, you're good. That's what I'm getting at. So if you haven't taken a look at that real food versus fake food lesson yet, it's really interesting. I highly, highly recommend burning it into your brain that whole food carbs, good. They give you energy. They can give you vitamins. They'll give you fiber. Your body has to work harder to digest them, so therefore you're not absorbing as many calories from it, whereas a junk food or more processed, you're going to absorb those calories better. So, moving on. Tomorrow, another fantastic, really kind of deep lesson is we're going to tackle gray area foods. Now, I've kind of mentioned this a little bit, gray area foods, before, but gray area foods, we put it in Carb Week because gray area foods tend to be those foods that you're trying to add in and make fit within your habit goals, but they're more processed than whole foods. So for example, this could be your wraps, your sauces, veggie chips, stuff like that. But there's I have two different levels of them. So on two different ends of the spectrum. So you can look at it two ways. Gray area foods are usually more processed foods, but one way you can look at it is it could be a bridging the gap type of food. So where it's a food. So for example, say a whole wheat wrap is something that you make for lunch, but you're using it as a means to pack in more protein, more plants, more healthy fats. It's not the star of the show, is what I'm saying. It's just a vehicle type of thing. It could be a low sugar sauce or something like that you're using within a plate or a meal that is packed with habits. You're filling all your meal habits, but you're just having a little accessory on the side. So it's just making that meal a little bit more palatable, enjoyable for you, but it's not necessarily what you're trying to use to fill your habit. Okay, so the bridging the gap, it's allowing you to get better at what you ultimately want to get better at eating more whole foods and more nutritious foods. Then there's the other way to look at it. It could be if you've asked, are these veggie chips good enough for my plant habit? It could be, if you asked, I think in that lesson, I think I said, people trying to make snack foods like pork rinds, asking if they're okay to eat. So like if you've asked if a certain food is okay to eat because it's more of that snacky type food, like something that you could get out of a bag, a vending machine type of thing, then it's probably not going to be filling the habit. I'm not saying that you can't eat it. I'm just saying if you're asking whether or not it fills a habit, then, and you're not sure if it fills a habit because you're probably in the back of your mind know that it doesn't fill a habit because it's not a whole food type of thing. So if you're trying to make those type of foods the star of the show, then, you need to be honest with yourself and rethink what your meal is comprised of. Like I said, gray area foods, they have a spot, they have a place. They can be a tool to bridge the gap and make a whole food or more whole food meal better. But it's really, really important that you don't use those type of foods like protein balls, those peanut butter, chocolate, oat type of things. Like I know people will, like, I'm not saying that you can't have them. Like it's okay to have like one, if you want a sweet bite. Yeah, it's a good way to curb a sweet tooth. But if you're using it as a snack, like for your protein habit, then you're probably just feeding an old habit, which would mean you're feeding your dessert habit, which is something that you want to try to break the habit of using as a crutch. So that lesson, that comes tomorrow. Really great lesson. And hopefully it's going to make you guys think about how you're building your meals, and just your perspective overall of like, what habit am I actually feeding here? Am I using my meal habits? Am I using my meal planning as a way to retrain my brain, or am I still trying to stay in that old way of thinking? So that's what we're trying to get at. And then the next day, Thursday, is another good one, the misunderstanding of carbohydrates. So that's one where we kind of break down why you need carbohydrates and who may and may not benefit going low carb. So whereas you're a person that doesn't move around a lot, you're not super active, you could probably get away with going lower carb than say somebody that has a really active job. They're running around all the time, using a lot of mental energy. They exercise. Those type of people would need more carbohydrates to feel better, function better, and recover. So that lesson comes on Thursday, and that is another awesome one. Now, if you have any questions about any of this stuff, because we do cover a lot of information about carbohydrates, just reach out to your coach. But all the lessons have a lot of detail in them. They're explained very well. All the, perspective that we have on carbohydrates. But just to wrap things up, if you're feeling like you have cravings, you are feeling a little bit run down, just kind of cranky, you probably need to add some more starch into your menu. And I'm not saying like every single meal you have to do it. But some of those key meals like lunch or dinner will help you sleep better, because carbohydrates help with melatonin production. So actually eating carbohydrates at nighttime, if you're having trouble sleeping, can help you fall asleep better and settle your brain. So it's things like that that you can start thinking of like, okay, I don't feel too awesome. What is it that I'm not doing, or what is it that I am doing that is contributing to that? So we're all about taking a step back and learning how to identify problematic steps within our. Okay, it just went out. Sorry. It's all about process of, learning, failing, figure things out. That's why this whole thing is 12 weeks. So if you have any questions about carbs or anything like that, just reach out to us on the page, ask here. We'd be happy to answer your questions. But then also, of course, reach out to your coach. And that's it. I'm going to wrap it up. So thank you guys for tuning in on a Tuesday. I will be back on for the regular chat as scheduled on next Wednesday for week 6. But like I said, y'all look at our Instagram stories and Facebook stories. I'm sure I'll try to post some of my eats while I'm at the theme park the rest of this week. All right. I will see y'all next week. Bye-bye.